How many WIPs do you have? Work in progresses do you have?
Let me see. Look.
Welcome to the Mic'd Up Podcast. I'm Kaya. I am your host. I am an author, an entrepreneur, and a podcaster. This podcast I created to uplift and amplify voices of people in the Black romance literary community. And you are my second author that I've had. This is my fifth time doing this. So, welcome and thank you.
Thank
So, a
you.
little bit about Robbi Renee. Okay, so your bio reads Loss, grief, and anxiety birthed Robbi Renee in December 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. She penned stories of love, heartbreak, and healing. A love for reading transformed into an obsession with writing authentic Black characters, living beautiful Black lives, and thriving in Black communities that pay homage to her hometown of St. Louis. Bossy and beautifully broken heroines, plus sexy and adoringly complicated heroes, equal a captivating collision of Black love. Some say Robbi Renee has a pen possessed that will break your heart, then put the pieces back together perfectly. Robbi Renee enjoys writing contemporary and urban romance that takes readers on a wild ride. Check out the growing Robbi Renee collections of novels and novellas. So welcome again.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so I'm going to get right into the questions here. My first question is, in your bio, it says that loss, grief, and anxiety birthed your writing.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, how has writing helped you cope with those things?
Yeah, that's a good question. So during the pandemic, of course, we all were at home. We didn't have much to do. We were working at home. Everybody was home from school, all of those things. And at the same time, I also experienced loss of two family members within 30 days of one another, not from COVID, but other situations that were going on. And I really didn't realize that I was already in this level of depression of just like being in the house all day, not really getting out. And I always joke with people, but my husband would say, like, did you drink another bottle of wine this week?
Oh, wow.
And it was becoming one of those things where I was like, I may need to get into something different. So I started reading, and I came across Stephanie Nicole Norris as a recommendation for her Valentine series. And it was like I started with book one, and then I went to book two, and it just became a bit of another obsession, I guess. But it really did help me get back into reading. I always loved reading and writing throughout, high school and college. I kind of stopped when I went to grad school because it became I'm reading for grad school, so I didn't want to touch any other book, but it really gave me the opportunity to start journaling again, which I love to do. And those journal stories kind of turned into, I wonder, could this be a thing? Like, could I write these other stories? And Stephanie Nicole Norris was actually the one who kind of put a challenge out to her fans and said, who wants to write a book? And I raised my hand along with 8 or 9 other people, and we wrote a novella series with her. It was a holiday series in December of 2020, and it was really a win. Honestly, it was like, I should try it. I don't have anything else to do. Like, I'm literally in the house all day. I should try it. And it was a story that came out of like journals and kind of looking at all those things that I have been writing. And it just was such a healing process to like use this creative outlet, right? To do something else, to not watch TV all day, to not sit and eat all day, and all of those things. It's just another creative outlet that has now turned into a career that I was not banking on, but definitely I'm thankful and grateful that I was given that outlet to really sort of make it through, honestly, the pandemic and heal from those processes. And I think that's why a lot of my books have some level of high levels of drama and a little bit of trauma because of what I was going through in my real life, and it was an outlet for me to be able to like put those feelings and words on paper through another character that was not me, right? But still being able to have like that creative outlet.
Okay. So the first time you shared what you were writing is when you did that challenge, because you said you were journaling and you were writing, but that was the first time that was the first time and it was published?
Yes, that was the first time I had ever shared any stories that were in my head. That was the first time I ever did anything like that. And I was kind of like, well, I could do it this one time. And I could always say, I published a book, like, and then it was like, well, I have another story. I wonder how that will do. And then another story, and then another story. So it just kind of developed into this persona of Robbi Renee that I didn't really even know existed.
That is amazing, because you said that was December of 2020.
Yes.
Sometimes people take 10 years to write a book. That is very impressive.
I am typically I'll try anything once. Like for the most part, not everything, but I'll try anything once, and I'm not afraid to fail. So it was like, okay, that first book, you had all your family and friends and sorority sisters and all these people buying the book. So I was like, okay, let's see what happens with the second book if I get the same kind of, response. And I did get a really good response. So I was like, oh, this could be a thing. Let's see if we can keep going.
What was the second book?
The second book was Pretty Shattered Soul. So that was my first full novel.
Gotcha.
Christmas was a novella, which was a part of Stephanie Nicole Norris's holiday series. But Pretty Shattered Soul was my first novel
on your own.
Yeah, on my own. Yes.
Oh wow, that's really impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now that you're, I guess, 4 years into your journey, what now inspires you to keep writing?
There are so many stories to be told. And honestly, like I said, writing has become really healing for me. It allows me to kind of separate, and I'm like, everybody's going through different levels of storms. I've had my, peaks and valleys over the last 4 years, but writing becomes an escape. I can sit in my little yellow chair and kick my feet up with a glass of wine, and I just fall into this fictitious world where I don't have to be my government name and be mom and be wife and be, be worker, all those things, team leader, all those things. I could just be Robbi Renee and dive into a level of creativity that I'm not always able to do, in my other life. So that has definitely motivated me to keep writing. And honestly, the fans have motivated me to keep writing. It still boggles my brain that people are like, oh my God, I read your book. You're amazing. Can I take a picture with you? And I'm like, me? Where you want to take a picture with me? So that has definitely motivated me to want to keep going. And I think, again, just like having that outlet just is so freeing and relaxing for me that I don't want to give it up. Like I kind of caught the bug and I haven't lost it yet. So it's like, if I ever feel like I'm not putting out what I deem as my best work and best quality, that's the moment that I'll say, okay, I'm done. Like I've done all that I can, and I'm proud of what I've done, but I'll, move on to do something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little insight into your writing process? Like, how do you come up with your characters? How do you build the world? How do you choose the conflict? Like, how do you come up with that?
I wish I had some like great, wonderful structure that I follow. Every time I get this question, I'll be like, this is such a lame answer because I don't necessarily have a process. And maybe I do, and I just don't realize it is my process, right? But I'm not really a structured writer. Like I can think of an ending of how a book could end before I even know what's going to happen in the beginning and the middle. Um, in terms of character development, I do spend a lot of time researching and really digging into what I want a character to bring forward in a book. If they're an antagonist, protagonist, whatever it may be, I do a lot of research in terms of like, what is Black love, like what does that look like in different forms. What does that look like with different people, different walks of life, all of those things. So definitely do a lot of character sketches and character development to get it right to where I feel like, oh my gosh, she could be my best friend, or
Right.
oh my God, he's amazing, like the way that he loves her. So I gotta really feel a connection to the character, and that's probably what I spend the most time on in my writing process is the development of the characters, because the story is going to tell itself. Like you're going to get, I tried the whole structured thing and I look back at it and I'm like, what was I saying? Because that is not what the finished product was
Right. Yeah.
that I first thought I was going to start off with. But I do try to write when I'm inspired. I'm not like a, you got to get 1,000 words a day type writer. Like I can, last night, for example, my husband was next door watching the basketball games. I had the music blasting. I had a glass of wine, and I just sat and banged out whatever came out. I didn't even put a word count on it because I'm just like, I just want to get something out. And I probably wrote like 2 or 3 chapters last night. So for me, that's how it works. Now I may not do anything until Tuesday.
Right.
Right. Like how I'm inspired. So that's my process, and it has worked so far. To not have this sort of structured way of doing things. I am structured with my character development, but not necessarily structured with the story. And I get motivation from anything. I can get motivation from a song, from a movie. I can overhear somebody talking about something. It could be anything. I can get motivation from other books where I'm like, oh, I probably would have gone a different direction. Maybe I can write, something that goes a different direction from a book that I've read personally. So I can get inspiration from anything pretty much.
So that's interesting that before you weren't writing, before December 2020, you weren't putting out books, but now that you're doing it, your mind thinks creatively all the time now. You weren't doing that before?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't really looked back in my journals because they are not necessarily written in novel formats. They are more written in just like ideas that come to mind, and I put them in my journal. So I guess that still was a level of creative outlet, but not to the point where I had to like frame dialogue and really understand what the peak of a story is and all those kind of things. So that had to come, I think, with time and actually sitting and saying, okay, you have to write a novel. That includes dialogue. That includes all these pieces. Whereas writing in a journal about a story, you're just high level, kind of, putting the words down. So I guess there was a certain level of creative outlet, but just in a different way.
And you mentioned also that you put a lot of research into your characters, and I can tell. And I think that's part of the reason why, your readers resonate with your characters, because I think I may have told you my first listen from you was Somebody's Wife. And that introduced me into a world of educators that I was not privy to, but I felt like I knew a lot about, I felt like I knew a lot after listening to it because it was so well woven into the story And I'm just like, oh, okay, so that's how to, oh, okay. I
Mhm.
learned something. So I could tell that you put a lot of thought into it, even like the medical conditions and things like that. So I could tell. And I really do think that makes a difference with your audience when they can tell that you care about what you're writing and you're researching what you're writing. You know what you're talking about, not just pulling ideas out of the
Exactly.
air. So
And I want I want my books to feel authentic. I want them to feel
mm,
real. Like it can, like I was saying before, like this could be your best friend's story, your sister's story, your cousin's story, whatever. I want it to feel like people that you touch, see, feel every day versus, these pie in the sky images. And don't get me wrong, I love those books. I love the books where we parasailing in Belize. Like that's
right.
great. I personally don't know anybody that has
Right.
parasites. So you probably will never see that show up in a book for me because that's not reality for me.
Got it.
So, and not saying that all of this is reality, but there is some level of personal experience or experience of friends or experience of people who I've crossed paths with that show up in some kind of way to
Mhm.
make that connection where you can feel like Gemma from, somebody's wife. Like I have had so many women reach out to me and be like, girl, have you been in my Instagram? Like what
Mm,
like
mm,
are you in my text messages? What is going on?
right.
But I'm like, no, but I know a lot of Gemmas, right? So I'm able to really write about that type of woman because I know a lot of folks who have gone through, this second chance at love and all those types of things and how they got there. So it can feel very real
Yeah.
because I'm pulling from real life stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I have a lot of questions here for you. You touched on that you're not really a structured writer, but on average, how long does it take you to complete a project if we're talking about a novel?
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh my gosh. It took me forever to write somebody's wife was probably the longest time because I wrote probably half of it probably in a couple months and then I shelved it because I was getting feedback that people don't like the cheating trope or infidelity
Mm,
trope. It's not gonna do well, So I was like, okay, I'm gonna walk away from it and see what happens. And then went back to it, but it still took me probably about another 3 to 4 months to finish it out. For the most part, if I am diligent and focused, I can probably from start to finish write in about 3 to 4 months. Some books I have written, like Pretty Sure Sold, I wrote in about 8 weeks
mm,
because it was just like flowing like crazy. I haven't had that experience probably since then.
mm.
I wish I had that experience right now, but it just flowed. But I think on average, it takes me about 3 to 4 months to turn out what I feel like is quality work. And because I also work full time,
Right.
I got other stuff going on, so it's like I kind of get to it when I can. But if I'm on a deadline, I can be very focused and turn it out pretty quickly.
Okay. So you mentioned that, people were telling you when you were doing somebody's wife that they didn't think it would work. Did that come from like beta readers or you were just telling people what it's about and they were like, don't do that?
Yeah. So I at the time I was with a publisher,
Okay.
um, and I had submitted those first couple of chapters, and it was like it's good. You just have to be careful with that trope. And I was trigger shy because I was like, I'm still new in this. Like I'm still building my target audience and all of those kind of things. But when I went back to it and really started to add to the story, I was like, but it is so much more than that.
Mm,
It is a story that happens every day. Like it's life. So it needs to be told. And I really just used my gut feeling and was like, I want to put this out.
right.
So do
So
you want it or should I independently publish it? And the publisher did want it and it has been my most successful to date.
really? So that
Yeah.
experience, I'm assuming has, like you said, you just go with your gut. So whatever you're feeling, you just do what you feel is authentic to you because Yeah, I couldn't imagine someone telling you that that's not a
Yeah.
good. I can't imagine that.
It wasn't a good feeling because I really was like, oh my God, this is such a good story. It's going in such a great direction.
Mm.
That's why I had to shelve it and kind of walk away and get out my feelings for a minute. But then when I stepped back to it, I was like, oh no, I'm putting this out. Even if I have to self publish, like this is getting out there.
Mhm.
And one of my really good friends, who was also a beta reader for me, I sent it to her and she was like, oh my God, like this is totally different than anything I've read that you've done.
Mhm.
And I was like, are you sure it's gonna be okay? You know, I was still doubting myself. And she's like, no, your audience, if they rock with you, they're gonna rock with you through, you know,
Right.
whatever the topic may be. And that's been so true. It's actually built my audience.
Right. Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, that's most people I talk to are like, somebody's wife, and they're
Yep.
like, yes, and you should read this and this and this
Yep.
too.
Yep. Yep. That's how it goes because I hadn't heard. I'm new to the audiobook romance world
Mhm.
as well, but I hadn't heard anything like that as of yet. And in the well, I've got more questions, but I'll just say in the beginning, you set it up so lovely with Q. I'm like, oh, Q is just, oh, Q, okay. And then like this, I'm
Like,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, 20 years is a long time, and
it
people
is a long
change,
time, but I'm
things
just,
change.
I, but I like that because it was completely unexpected
Yeah.
and realistic. It's so realistic. Like, I love that. So let me move on because I could talk about that forever. Um, let's see. So, has writing romance changed the way you express love in your personal life?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think so. Like, I'm constantly bouncing things off of my husband because I'm like, okay, I want to make sure, does this sound like what like a black man would say? You know, or does this
I do.
feel right? Or does this feel like this is
Right.
being written by a woman trying to sound like a black man, right?
Yes.
Um
Yes, yes, yes.
yes. So I definitely bounce things off of him. He typically I mean, especially when it comes to things like you know, the types of alcohol, cigars, and things like that. I'm like, I don't know about this kind of stuff. I'll have you drinking a lemon drop martini, and that would just look crazy,
Mm,
you know, if that's the
right.
man. But I do think it has definitely changed from a communications perspective because I'm like,
Mhm.
if I'm writing about, you know, pushing people to have open communication, especially the women in the stories to use their voice and all of these things, that I need to be living those things out in my personal life as well. So it has sort of like the Robbi Renee persona definitely has spilled over into my regular life, where I'm a bit more bolder, I think,
Mhm.
and a little more. I mean, I've always been outspoken, but a bit of a risk taker, more risk taking than I was before. And we're newly empty nesters, so for us, it's kind of like we were walking into a new phase of life where it's like
Mm,
it's just the two of us.
mm.
We don't have kids' football schedules and you know all those kind of things. So we got to figure out creative ways to make space for one another, and I think the books have done that. My husband listens to the audio books and he'll be like, babe, like that was good, but maybe you could think about this. And so it's
Okay.
like we even use the books to communicate in ways. Like we will quote a line from a book and people will be like, what are y'all talking about? Never
That is
mind.
so, that's nice. That's
I joke.
nice. I like that. And you mentioned you're empty nester now. Little bonus question. What important lesson about love have you taught your children or your child?
Mhm. Ooh. So I we are a blended family.
Okay.
And I have one biological son and five bonus kids, two boys, three girls.
Mhm.
Um, and I think going back to the communication piece, like my son was our only child. by himself until I met my husband. And that was a big change for him to like not be the only child and have to be selfless in some things. And I think I have really been able to talk to him about that just in his going into his adulthood. He's in college now, wanting to date and do all of these things. So really talking about like allowing yourself to be vocal about what you need and what you want out of a relationship, what you even want out of our relationship as mother and son, because you're not the 12-year-old that I can say, do this, do that.
Right.
You're the almost 20-year-old who I'm like, what do you think you should do? Like, so I'm helping you process through it versus telling you what to do. So I think that has really, I'm hoping, helped our relationship a little bit. But I also think he sees me and he's like, Mom, I'm really proud of you. And I'm like, that's amazing. So that's what I want him to see. Like, you just decided to write this book one day and now look at you. Like, you know, right. So I'm hoping that's encouraging him to like not be afraid to fail in anything, not just in love and all the things, right? So yeah, I think that's what we've tried to do.
Okay. Okay, so next question is, in your bio, it also says that you had a love of reading. And I'm assuming you still have a love of reading. Before you started writing, who were some of your favorite authors and genres?
So I was a journalism major in college and a Black Studies minor. Because I just didn't get that exposure to Black literature in K through 12. So that was my opportunity in college to do that. And I read a lot of poetry. So if you haven't noticed, Nikki Giovanni probably has shown up in at least 4 of my books because she's one of my favorites. Langston Hughes is one of my favorites. Maya Angelou, I read a lot of her. Toni Morrison. Oh God, I used to read my mother's like would sneak and get her little Harlequin novels because I wasn't supposed to be reading those. And of course they didn't really resonate, but I read them anyway. So that was like where I did a lot of my reading, was kind of in that, you know, anything of Black literature that I could touch, I would read it. I honestly didn't start reading romance until the pandemic, like on a constant basis. Like I had read Zane and Evelyn Harris and some of that kind of stuff, but I hadn't really done romance in a while. I would do a lot of self-help books and I liked memoirs. I still like those. So that's the kind of stuff that I would read, but now it's a mix of it all. Just depending on kind of what I'm feeling and what I'm interested in the moment.
Okay. Let's see. What do you feel is the most challenging part of storytelling, writing books, creating characters? What do you think is the most challenging part about that? Excuse me.
I do think the most challenging part, honestly, I think that's the easy part. I think the easy part is telling the story. The hard work begins when it's time to market, brand, build, push, you know, you're like not in agreement. That's the hard part to me, like, because as a creative, as a writer, if you didn't have to worry about any of those other things, you could probably churn out stuff all day long. But then it's like, okay, the end. Oh, so now somebody got to read it other than me. Yep. Somebody has to buy it. I got to get an audience, you know, those types of things. So I think the storytelling and the character development is actually the easy part. If I had to say there was a hard part of that, is deciding when the story ends because when those characters are like booming and popping in your head, that story could go on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point you gotta say the end. So it's like, when do you cut it off? When do you,
Right.
end the piece of that character? And that's a tough, because you get so, you get so invested in them. And you're like, oh my God, I could probably talk about Dr. Zeke forever. But Dr. Zeke gotta go. Like, I gotta move on to the next book. So yeah, I think it's more about, when do you end? When do you finally end the story?
Okay. I'm listening. Sorry about that.
Oh, I know.
Okay, yeah. So I would say, like, for me, like you were saying, the marketing, because like, where do you start? Where do you go? What do you do? Who do you tell? Because, doing your friends and your family is only gonna go but so far.
And they're gonna get that 1 or 2 books, and then after the third one, they'll be like, "Girl, stop sending me this."
It's like, it's a constant learning thing when it comes to marketing. You're constantly learning, constantly.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And I was blessed because my first published work was supported by Stephanie Nicole Norris. I was able to tap into her network, which
right.
Amazing. So without that opportunity, the bloggers and some of the other folks, they wouldn't know who Robbi Renee was, because Stephanie actually allowed us to use her platform. Like, we took over her Facebook page. She blasted those books, and she got nothing. Like, this was not published under her, none of those things. This was just out of the kindness of her heart to offer this coaching opportunity. And I mean, if you know romance, you know her name. So to have your first work promoted on a platform like that, I was able to really take that momentum and tap into like other people. I would go to book events. I would hop on other podcasts and show up as Robbi Renee in support of other authors. And that was really how I started getting those connection points. I would send books to people and be like, put it on your page or whatever the situation may be. But that takes a lot of time.
It does.
That takes a lot of time and a lot of work.
Okay. What would you say? I want to get to the audiobooks, but what would you say is the most rewarding part of what you do?
The most rewarding part, there's a couple. I mean, and I'm not saying this just because I'm on this platform, but this, like, being able to have you reach out to me and be like, would you like to do it? Absolutely. Yes. Like, let's go, because that's going to introduce me to a whole other platform and audience. So that's definitely a rewarding experience to, give to you, you give to me. It's an exchange. Some of the relationships that I have made since entering into this Black literary world, I wasn't expecting, but I am so grateful and thankful for them. From fans to fellow authors, all of those things. Like, there's some people who I know for sure, as soon as I put a book release, they're gonna be like, girl, I got it. Let's go. So it's like, knowing those kind of relationships exist is really rewarding. And I do think, and I think I posted this on my Instagram page, when somebody says to you that your book helped them, and you're like, how? Like, but these stories actually are like healing for people, and helping them realize certain things. So that's super fulfilling, because I definitely wasn't expecting that to come from this experience. Yeah.
Okay. I want to get into audiobooks, because audiobooks for me is a big reason why I started to write. Why I decided to take the leap to write. a romance, my first romance novel. When you decided, when you did your first audiobook, and forgive me, I'm not sure what your first audiobook was.
It was Pretty Shattered Soul.
Pretty Shattered Soul.
Mm-hmm.
What did that do to your fan base?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. So I have to give you a little bit of background of the story. So Wesley Siobhan and Emmanuel Ingram, they used to do this weekly Instagram, and I forgot what it was called, but they would read these excerpts.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they would read these excerpts, and you would have to like submit your book and hope that it was chosen, whatever. And I got the Instagram message of like, oh, on Thursday, an excerpt of Pretty Shattered Soul is going to be read on the thing. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I love Wesley. Like, Wesley Siobhan is top mm-hmm. narrator for me. I will buy anything she's connected to. So her and Emmanuel read an excerpt of Pretty Shattered Soul. And then I started getting people saying, okay, so when is it coming out? Oh. And I was like, it's not.
Gotcha.
I guess I need to make that happen. And I reached out to Wesley and was like, how do you even do this? Because I don't even know how to do this. Like, what do I do? And she's another one who has just been an amazing person to get to know and an amazing partner, because I've worked with her on all of my audiobooks, whether she was narrating or not. So that was really how it happened, because people were like, oh, when is it coming out? And I'm thinking, it's not, so I guess I got to figure this out, right? But Wesley really walked me through that process of how I go about, getting the audiobook released and all of those types of things. And I was hooked to audiobooks, so I knew I wanted my books on that platform. I just didn't know when. So I was kind of pushed into it a little bit earlier than I had anticipated. But it was the best decision. But that first time getting those files and like,
that was going to be my next question. Next question. When you got those files, did it light up your heart?
And it was so crazy because I knew I wrote the book, right? Like I knew I wrote the book, but I was just like, oh, this is good. And I'm like, okay, but it's your book, And of course, Wesley just elevates your work to a whole other level. So when I first got them, I was like, oh my God, there's something here. People gonna listen. It goes back to that part is done. Now I gotta market it. Now I gotta get it out there. Now people actually have to buy it. And I've learned a lot of lessons. I'm pretty sure this was definitely a lesson in some things not to do as it relates to putting out an audiobook. But that first time was just like, I probably listened to that thing, I know, 4 or 5 times in like a week. Like I would just listen to it every day. Like
it's crazy how they
yes, the turned on series. Yes.
They just kind of like elevate your story. Like, it sounds like that. Yeah. And it's just like when people say, when authors narrate their own books, and they're not narrators, I'm like, you are missing out, because if you hire a professional, it really changes everything. It's like you get the audiobook bug. Like, you got everything you write. At least for me, when I'm writing, I'm like, I hear somebody's voice. I hear so and so doing it. Oh, I hear so and so doing that.
And it has actually changed a little bit of my writing style.
Yes, because you hear how it translates on audio.
Going to sound narrated. How is it, where do I pause and do all these, certain things that will then translate to the narrated book. So it has been, a win. I think when I heard Somebody's Wife, I literally almost fell out my chair. Because because that was my dream. I mean, that's everybody's dream seems, right? To have Wesley and Jacoby do a book together. And I remember when she sent me the email and was like, Jacoby is in, and I was in the truck with my husband, and I just started screaming. And he's like, "Now, who is this? Who is Jacoby? Like, why are you so excited?
Why are you getting so excited about this man?"
And I was like, "No, you do not understand.
Right.
This just elevated this book in a whole other level,
another stratosphere." I know that feeling because when I did my first audiobook, it was Jacoby was on it. And I didn't know what I was doing. And eventually I ended up with going with the audio flow, and she produced the book for me. We went through the auditions, and I'm like, I don't like this person, but no, I like this person, but and she was like, well, I can see if Jacoby can do it. I was like, Jacoby?
And do I have to, does he have to interview me?
Right. And she was like, yeah, we work with him all the time. You know, he doesn't really audition, but we can send it to him and he can say yes or no. And I'm like, well, what does it take for him to say yes? Like, what? I know. And so long story short, when she emailed me like maybe a couple days later, and she's like, Jacoby said he'll do it. And it was just like, that was the whole email.
That was like, it. Yeah. And I'm like, are you serious? So yeah, when I first heard, once again, I probably listen to it every single day.
Yeah.
I still listen to it a lot.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I was floored. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me got a couple more questions and we'll just move on. Let's see. Where do you see your writing career the next year?
So I definitely have some independent projects coming up, but I also have my first traditionally published book coming out in December 2024. So to know that I'll be able to potentially walk in Walmart and my book will be in Walmart, like I still haven't really fully grasped that just yet. So that's definitely was a goal that came much faster than I anticipated. So again, I'm so blessed and so thankful. I've also kind of stepped into some writing coaching, which I'm really getting a lot of joy out of as well. So I definitely want to figure out how to do both of them really well and respect the writing coaching space, but also respect the Robbi Renee as a writer space. But yeah, I think in the next year, I'm looking to release a couple more audiobooks. So I'm really excited about that. And do some more independently published books as well. So kind of finishing out some of the series that I started. That's my goal for 2024 is to really finish some of those out so I can let those characters go.
Yeah.
And, start next year off with a whole new set that have been kind of sitting on the shelf for a little while.
And your traditionally published novel is Somebody's Husband, correct?
Yes.
Somebody's Husband.
It is not connected to Somebody's Wife. There are no characters in Somebody's Wife show up in Somebody's Husband. It is a very different spin than Somebody's Wife as well. So it's going to be interesting to see the response to that book. Because it was a labor of love. Like I feel really, really good about the story. So I hope it resonates that part.
I'm sure it will. Okay, so that's all the questions I have for you. And I'm just going to open up and see if anyone has any questions here. You can come off of mute and ask. I'm just looking through the chat. Question: what was the hardest scene you ever had to write and why?
Question. Who asked that question? From who? Oh, Anton. I was saying who asked that question because at first I thought I see Tasha Lisa on the call, and she's another writer that I supported. That's why I was like, did she ask that question? Because I feel like she already know the answer to this question. But the hardest scene I ever had to write was in Xander, Kendrick Xander's story, which was my third or fourth book. I can't remember. So spoiler, there is some childhood sexual trauma in that book, and the prologue, that probably has been to date the hardest thing that I've had to write, to really figure out how to bring out the trauma that the main character experienced as a child, so you can have that foundation to sort of understand what she goes through as an adult through the rest of the book. And some people, it's really tough for them to actually get through that profile. But other people have told me that, you know, it was respectfully and beautifully done. So I hope I did it justice. But it was hard. It was hard to write the breaking of innocence, you know, of a child in a book, and then to make sure that I showed her growth and her development throughout the story for the rest of her, you know, adulthood. That's my toughest book to date, but I'm actually most proud of Xander, because that pushed me into a comfort zone that I didn't think I could fall in. That pushed me out of my comfort zone, which was good, because it actually pushed me in my writing. Right. But that prologue still is, I cannot fully listen to that prologue or read that prologue. And Wesley once again delivers it so beautifully that it literally brings tears to my eyes. It brought tears to my eyes when I was writing it, and it brings tears to my eyes when I listen to it. So, but it's my proudest moment, but it's also the hardest that I had to write. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions or comments from anyone in attendance?
Hey, ladies. You Tasha Lisa, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned things that you learned not to do with an audiobook. What was that?
Yeah. So, with somebody's, or not somebody's wife, with Pretty Shattered Soul, that was my first audiobook, and I did not fully understand the full machine that Amazon, Kindle, and Audible, it's a machine. It's a machine that's positive, like it, you know, gets you a platform and all of those things, but it's also a machine that can suck your intellectual property and a lot of your rights. Okay. And I did not know that when I first put Pretty Shattered Soul on Audible. So I do not own the full rights of Pretty Shattered Soul, because I was just like, I'm just gonna put this on Audible. I think I understand what they're saying if I click this button. But I didn't understand what they were saying when I clicked the button. And now I have learned, you know, my lesson from that experience. But it was a hard pill to swallow, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
So when you're writing, since you are like really into the audiobook genre as well, you were saying like you kind of, and Kaya, that you like imagine a narrator saying the words. Do you ever sort of change maybe a scene so that maybe it's the male speaking or the female speaking, especially maybe with the spicy part? Because you want to give them both maybe like equal time to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for the books that are written in first person, where they kind of go back, you know, the female character, male character, female character. I do, when I go back and edit or when I go back and review, I'm kind of reading it aloud to myself, and sometimes I'll be like, actually, that sounds more like him. and I may, copy paste and move that over to his chapter and then make some changes in her chapter. And that's not only to support what it will sound like as an end product on an audiobook. That's just, flow of story, like to make sure that the tone of the characters are consistent. If she's timid and coy in chapter 1, we can't necessarily make her a video vixen by chapter 3. You know what I mean? Like, so it has to really flow with the build of the story. So I could sometimes go back. I actually was doing this last night with Pretty Shattered Mind, which is the final book of the Pretty Shattered series that's coming out, where I read through it and I was like, actually that's not flowing right, because I said she was acting this way just a couple paragraphs ago, and then this is in total conflict of what her behavior was, a couple pages ago. So that edit and shift happens just for the flow of the story, but also, to support how is this going to sound as a final product in audio.
Well, that's awesome to know that you kind of go back and remember that, okay, well, the person was this way or they said something. Because sometimes I feel like I read series and the author, maybe it's like time between books or something, and they don't realize that back in book 1, they had, they said something or they did something or it was some kind of way. And like, I'm listening to them maybe back to back to back, and I'm like, but girl, that's not what had happened in the last book. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And that is why, like, I 100% encourage any author to get multiple sets of eyes on their work in progress, like midway, to the end, all of those things, because I have a beta reader who checks for those things. Like, she checks for character development flaws, like if there are issues. I have another beta reader who will tell me things like, well, this was back in the 90s and we didn't have, this brand, this series of Jordans at that time. Like it will be those kind of things that I won't necessarily catch because I'm in the thick of the story, but somebody else who's reading it can catch those things. And then fans, right? Because a lot of folks, to Kaya's point, she was introduced through somebody's wife, but she may go back to Pretty Shattered Soul, then go to Pretty Shattered Heart. And to your point, if there's a discrepancy between those, it'll be like, wait, what? Like, what's going on with that? So that's why it's important, like with anything you write, even in school, people will tell you, get another set of eyes on your research paper. Same with the novel is, I have those beta readers, and then of course I have a relationship with the editor who has edited the majority of my work, so she knows how I write, she knows kind of how I like things to be positioned, and she'll even say, did you want him to do this? And then I'll be like, oh no, yep, you're right, that doesn't sound like right, and then we go back and I fix it. So it's a lot of steps between that pressing the end before you all, actually get it on your Kindle or in paperback, that hopefully resonates, to these fully developed and mature characters and consistent characters that we hope for, especially in a series. That's why I semi-hate series, because it's hard to maintain that book to book.
Right.
I mean, I love to read series, but I almost hate to write them.
Any more questions from anyone?
I think there was one in the chat, Kaya.
There's another one in the chat. Oh, another question from Antoine. If you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
Ooh, I would have told myself, girl, write the book, like in my 20s instead of in my 40s. I would have been like, write the book, like do it, instead of, and my friends would be like, you always talk about you got a book in your spirit. When you gonna write the book? When you gonna write the book? When you go? And I I always had, it was something else. It was something, my son had this going on, or, you know, whatever. And I would tell my younger self, write the book, and if even one person gets something out of it, you've won. So, and now I think that depression and grief and stuff that I went through in 2019 and 2020 really taught me that life is super short. And if you have something that you want to do it. Because you're already at no, so you might as well do it and actually get the no, right? So because you're already telling yourself no, and nobody else has told you no. So that for me was like motivation to push through self-doubt, and say, I'm gonna find my audience if they're out there, and I'm gonna stick to my audience. And I wish I would have had that mentality in my 20s.
Is somebody's husband going to be on all platforms all at one time?
Somebody's husband may not immediately come out on audiobook. That is through a publisher, so I am at the mercy of the publisher. But it will be paperback, hardback, and ebook.
Paperback. Okay. Are they going to publish your somebody's wife? Also,
no,
maybe?
that right now is it was published under Be Love Publications, because I wrote that when I was with Be Love Publications. But I now fully own the rights of Somebody's Wife, so it'll be republished under my publishing, which is Love Notes by Robbi Renee. So if you people, I put this out yesterday because I was getting some messages like, hey, I tried to get the ebook of Somebody's Wife and I can't find it. Well, it's not on Kindle right now because I have to go through a process to get it back up under my own publishing.
Okay, because until you said something earlier about the Somebody's Wife, reading is fundamental, because I sure was like, well, why is it coming out in 2024 when the book is already out? Like, why are they going to take so long to just
print the book? Somebody's wife and somebody's husband literally have nothing to do with each other.
Girl, read. It does not say the same thing.
All right. Any more questions from anybody? Okay. All right. Okay, so we're just going to move on to your latest audiobook release, which is Foreplay, who is narrated by two of my favorites, Miss Bree Taylor and Mr. I Ain't Never Gonna Stop Narrating James.
I mean, I'm like, when do you breathe, sir?
Yeah. I love him and Tree on the audiobook together. They're like one of my favorite duos. And I've worked with them, I won't say a number of times, but I worked with them a lot with my small catalog, and I love them together.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the book Foreplay? And I'll tell you what I think about Foreplay.
Foreplay was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed writing Lennox and Tia. Lennox was always a character that I wanted to bring forward. He was sprinkled in Pretty Shot Soul, a little sprinkle in A Beautiful Surprise, I believe. And he was just always like this outspoken, funny, character with a couple, 2 or 3 lines. But I knew that I wanted a book for him. And I wanted to I can't even remember what I was watching. It was like a game show. So telling you how you get inspiration. It was a game show, and they were saying something about Never Have I Ever. And I was like, oh, that can be the game. The book can be Foreplay, la 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 la. And it just all started clicking for me. And I wanted to do a character like Tia, who was like super timid, super coy, but something was inside of her that somebody needed to, and that was Lennox.
Right.
I think, that I love that book because it's just so cute to me. It's such a sexy but cute friends to lovers. So it's definitely in my top. I that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I felt like the Tia character, she had to be timid to fit in with that theme that was woven throughout. I just like how throughout the book is never have I ever. Every time they did something, never have I ever. Like I really, really enjoyed that theme that just kept circling back to it. I did enjoy the Lennox character. I enjoyed the whole book. I liked the neighbors. I liked them a lot. They were fun. And I liked that, like you said, the character was coy and you just kind of, had her just blossom out throughout the book. I like that as well because, like we were saying earlier, it's just like a relatable thing. Just stepping out, she came from I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't read it or listened to it, but she came from a situation, decided to start over, and she had to allow herself to even try to step out and to do something new. And it just so happens that it was with Lennox. So I like how the story, I like how their relationship developed throughout the story. And I really liked when the story came to a head after the New Year's Eve. I like that. I knew that something was gonna happen. Yeah, I know something was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But that's not what I expected, but I really, really did like that. So and with Tree and with Winston, like I said, they're two of my favorites. They just bring everything, like
absolutely.
They do. They bring it together.
She really, I again, just 100% pleased with how she embodied.
She gets it.
Yeah, and even her voice connected so well with the innocence of Tia and the goofiness of her, and all of those kind of things. Like, so I really like that. But I think for me too, Foreplay was also about Lennox being this man who had this certain image too of what the woman in his life would look like. And although like he was like, if you want to work out for you, if that's what you want to do, he wasn't trying to change her to fit within this mold. She actually changed him, which I think was what I liked most about the book. That it was I don't know. It was just hard to describe. It's just such a cute story to me.
It really, really, really is. So if you all haven't listened to Foreplay or read Foreplay, I encourage you to do that. It is available on her website. You get it through BookFunnel. There was one question I skipped over that I was going to ask you, but talking about this book is bringing it back to the forefront. Is there a book or story you've written that you can see on the big screen? And if so, who would you want to play these characters?
Ooh, child. Oh my goodness. I think somebody's wife could resonate really well to a show or whatever, Netflix, whatever. Look, I'm speaking into existence.
Who's gonna play the good doctor?
Play the doctor. I will say, and this is only because I have recently seen imagery of him, and he is just timeless. I
think, who are you gonna say?
Morris Chestnut.
I could see that.
Timeless, like he just he's just timeless.
Yes.
Oh, Gemma is a hard one for me.
There is an actress. Oh, I cannot remember her name. She played on, oh goodness, I'm gonna have to, I don't even want to butcher her name because I can't, of course I can't think of her name when I'm trying to think of her name. I'll have to look her up. I can't. Emma Yatse. I think her name is Emma Yatse.
I'll have to get a
If you
visual.
see her, you'll probably know who she is. She's
Okay.
Yeah, she's been around acting for a while, and she has a recognizable face, but not such a recognizable name.
Okay.
I just pulled her up on Instagram. Let me get a face picture of her so you can see who I'm talking about. This is the best one I can find. Oh, this woman. Do you know who she is?
Oh, I've seen her before, but I did not know her name. Yeah,
her name is Emma Yatse. I can see her as Gemma.
I can see her. Okay. I can definitely see her. So yeah, I think somebody's wife would go on screen well. You haven't read somebody's husband, but I also think that could I don't know. Look, I will try to figure out a way for all of them if somebody approached me with that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, maybe that could be in your future, getting your stuff adapted to the big screen.
That's right.
Right. For sure.
Definitely a long-term goal.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So we talked about I'm sorry.
I was reading the comment. It said manifesting. I was like, yes, manifest.
For sure. So talked about foreplay. Like I said, everybody, you can get that on her website. I did have a giveaway for those who have who registered to attend tonight, and I put everyone's name in a name wheel in randomly selected names. And I tried to upload the video of me selecting the names so people don't think I just chose whoever. But I can put that on my page because I didn't choose the people. So for the first prize, for prize number 1, rather, it's an audiobook copy of Foreplay, and that was Tosha Leza. It was Tosha Leza. Do you already have Foreplay? Miss Tosha Leza, I'm saying your name correctly, right? Oh, I don't know if she's there. I don't know if she already has a copy.
No, I don't. I don't have it. I'm so excited.
Oh, yay. Okay, so...
Yay. And you said my name beautifully. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that was the first one. So the second prize, prize number 2, was the Love Notes Journal by Robbi Renee, which I conveniently have here. So the winner for that one is Monica.
Oh,
Monica! And the third prize was a coveted Audible credit. And that person is K-Reed. So congratulations, ladies. Thank you all for registering. And I will get with you after the podcast to get everything in order. So we're going to pivot really quick into a quick game, and then we'll be pretty much done with you. Are you enjoying yourself?
Yes, this is lovely. I like this format.
All right, you've been a delight. Okay, so I like to try to put games together that I think that, the guests will enjoy. So for this one, I just kind of put together like a this or that and like kind of quick fire questions. Nothing too deep, but just a way for us to get to know you a little more. Okay. So I'm just going to go down the list. What's that? We haven't talked about my book, Xander.
Yes, Monica loves Xander.
We talked about Xander a little bit.
We talked about Xander a little bit, I think, before you hopped on.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go.
Okay.
Writing
and I'm answering these questions, right?
What's that?
I'm answering these questions.
You're answering. Yep. Writing at night or writing in the morning?
At night.
Writing a series or a standalone?
Ooh, standalone. I want to do another series.
Yeah, I get you. Do you prefer listening to audiobooks or reading books?
I actually prefer reading, but I only have time for audio, so that's what I do most.
Gotcha. Do you enjoy writing the protagonist or the villain more?
The protagonist.
Writing a spicy scene or an emotionally charged dramatic scene?
Emotionally charged dramatic scene.
Mhm. What would be one of your favorite tropes?
Friends to lovers.
Okay. Are there any other writers in your family?
Yes, my cousin, he wrote a book about being a D1 college athlete as a Black man, and how they do not prepare you for life after football.
Oh, wow.
So yes, he just released it in January of this year.
Okay. All right. What's the name of it?
God, let me see. It's on my bookshelf. Hold on.
Excuse me.
Soul of an Athlete.
Soul of an Athlete. I'm just putting that into the
His
chat.
name is Steve Davis.
By Steve Davis.
And it's a compilation of a few other D1 athletes, but he's in there as well.
Okay. Let's see. We've already discussed that you don't write very structured, so we'll skip that. What has been your best investment for your writing career? As far as like a purchase, whether it be an app, a computer, or
yeah. So I think my best investment I bought is a program called Vellum.
Heard of
that
Vellum.
I use to do my own formatting of my books. And it just again gives me, I have some control issues. I'm working on them, but it gives me a level of control of like how things look and the consistency in my brand. And it was an investment, but it has paid off tenfold.
Yeah, I was looking into Vellum. Okay.
Yeah.
How many WIPs do you have? Work in progresses do you have?
Let me see. Look, they're all written on this little whiteboard right here. 1, 2, 3. Probably about 6 that actually will see the light of day potentially in 2024. If things that won't see the light of day, probably like 10, 15.
But 6 is still a lot.
6 is a lot. Yeah.
6 is a lot.
My goal is to release 4 independently published books this year, and then Somebody's Husband being the 5th, which is the traditional published book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does writing energize you or exhaust you?
Both. It just kind of depends. When I'm writing for a deadline, it kind of exhausts me. But Ashley Internet, who is one of my favorite authors, posted a video the other day just talking about discipline. How sometimes you got to set the passion aside and just be disciplined. And that's kind of where I am now, where I'm like,
gotcha.
I just got to be disciplined. So it may not be for pleasure all the time, but the discipline is necessary, and I'll get the pleasure later once the product is finished.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What is the last book you read?
The latest release from Kennedy Bryan.
Oh, This Could Be Us. Okay.
Mm-hmm. This Could Be Us. Yep.
Right. What is your favorite song right now? Or one of your favorite songs right now?
The one song, it's is it Usher and
is it Ruin?
Song, we're good, but we're still good. We're not good, but we're still good.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, I don't listen to a lot of music day to day. I listen to more books in the car and in my house. But I do like that song because I like Usher.
Which one would you prefer to watch, The Cosby Show or A Different World?
Oh, child. Both on a Thursday night on NBC. What do you mean?
You had to choose. You had a half
Probably
hour.
different world. Probably different world.
Okay, Living Single or Girlfriends?
Living single all day long. I've seen every episode 1,000 times.
I'm good with Living Single too. Martin or The Fresh Prince?
Martin.
All right. What is your favorite old school dance?
So I am from St. Louis, the birthplace of Nelly. So the chicken head is probably my favorite dance because we do that still to this day all the time.
Really?
It's like
Really?
Yes,
Now, are you to do the chicken head? Will you get all the way down and do it, or do you stay up?
Oh, honey, I am chicken head queen. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Do you prefer a staycation or a vacation?
Vacation.
Okay. And you kind of already answered what you listen to while you're driving. As far as movies, romantic comedy or drama?
Drama.
What is the most used emoji on your phone?
The praying hands.
Okay. What is the most worn item in your wardrobe?
Oh my gosh. Working from home, some form of a legging and a nice shirt. I'm business at the top, whatever happens at the bottom. So yeah, some form of a legging or workout pants. And I'm probably not going to work out, but one of the two.
You're not going to work.
I dress like I'm gonna work out every day, but it does not necessarily happen.
Same.
I'm so motivated first thing in the morning, but by noon it's dead. That motivation is dead.
That's funny. Same. A movie that made you cry.
I am a big baby, so anything can make me cry, but The Notebook is guaranteed to
Really?
all the films. Yes.
Wow, that is an emotional one. I do like that movie a lot. I didn't cry at the end. I did feel really sad. Like, I don't know. Like, I think I would watch it, but when it got to the end, I know what's gonna happen. Let me
I didn't actually cry at the end. I mean, I cried at the end, but I cried throughout the movie because that is just such a beautiful love story to me.
It is a good love story.
Yeah, it gets me every time.
Good love story. It's a good love story. And the last question I have for you is, what is your favorite snack?
Almonds.
Oh, really?
Lightly salted or dark chocolate covered.
That's a nice, healthy snack.
I mean, it's healthy in moderation.
Mm.
It is not healthy in the quantity that I intake them.
I was just
yes, like I am craving almonds right now, and I have none in my house, and I never leave my house for cravings other than almonds. I will go to Walgreens and buy 2 bags of the big bags of almonds.
Almonds. I can eat the pistachios. I love pistachios and sunflower seeds. Like, I can eat those.
My sister is a sunflower seed. Yeah, she loves them. But almonds, I don't know what it is. It's like I'm a sweet and salty. So anything that gives me a little bit of a sweet and a little bit salty, I'm hooked.
All right. Well, that was the last question I had for you.
This was fun.
Well, I thank you again for joining in, and I thank everyone who is here for joining us today. So the new projects you have coming out, you already mentioned, and you also did mention your coaching program where you are coaching new writers
Yes.
experienced writers, and you and I are going to have a coaching session coming up soon.
Next Sunday, I think. Yes.
Sunday. Yep, next Sunday.
Yes.
So if anyone here on the call is interested in coaching, to get your, I guess, well, you can let them know coaching as far as
all my coaching information, in addition to book information, is on my website. I guess I don't have to say www, but RobbiRenee.com. I am also, to your point, bringing 7 new authors through a series, a 4th of July book series called Seduction in Red, White, and Blue. So that will be released on July 4th. So I'm really excited about that. I will also be writing as a part of that series. So it'll be me and these 7 other ladies who are writing all different stories, but all themed around 4th of July. So I'm really excited about it. Our first session was last week. It went really, really well. So I'm hoping there's a lot of activity going on in our group meet, people supporting each other, holding folks accountable. So it is like a full circle moment for me, remembering myself back in, when Stephanie did this. But yeah, all of my information can be found on my website. I think Monica put a question, what events am I doing?
Yep, I was just about to
not doing a ton of events this year. I am doing the Girlfriends Unfiltered book event in Pasadena, California in September. This is a busy personal travel year for me. My husband and I are celebrating 10 years married. I have friends turning 50, so I have so much personal travel, and so that's the only book event that really worked for my schedule this year. But it was an amazing event if you did not attend last year, and I begged Yoko, please have me back. So I'll be doing that in September. Oh, you're on mute, I think.
I'm sorry, I was chewing. There's another question in the chat. What advice would you give to an aspiring author? What tips could help me be successful? Let me find out you're an aspiring author.
Who asked that question?
Antoine.
Oh, Antoine, go to my site. We can talk. Let's do it. Let's do a chat. Right. Like, that is always my biggest advice is write. Your conditions for writing will never be perfect. You will try to get them perfect. They will never be perfect. My other big piece of advice is to touch your work in some way every single day. So whether that is writing, whether that's editing, whether that's character development, whether that's research, any of those things, something that is pouring into your work in progress. It doesn't always have to be writing, because sometimes we do just have blocks, like it happens. But that doesn't mean you walk away. There's other pieces of the process, right, that you can be doing to pour into that work. So write, and touch your work in some type of way every single day.
That's good advice. Good advice.
Yeah.
Any final remarks from anyone before we close out? I think that's all that's in the...
Of course. Thank you, Antoine.
I think that is it.
Thank you for taking the time to be, so available for fans and your readers. It's always really nice to be able to interact with the authors, because it almost seems like so far away, like almost like someone on TV or something like that. But when you guys are so personable and so available, like I'm always messaging Kaya like we really know each other. Very, very, and even like Alexandra House, like I'm always so surprised when she messages me back, and I'm like, this lady to me is like, I know this person. So
like without you all, we can't do this. So we are kind of still like, wait, people, when you say like, oh, it's like seeing somebody on TV like a celebrity, like, really? Me? Once again, really? So it's like just talking to a friend on Instagram or wherever the platform is. So
I'm right there with you because I'm just when people say nice things about stuff that I write, and I'm just like,
I know.
it really. I don't think I'll ever get used to it, but I also think that's a good thing.
Yes.
I don't think I'll ever get used to that, and I appreciate it so much because it really does keep me encouraged, and it makes me, want to keep doing what I'm doing. So,
and it keeps you grounded,
yeah.
and just continue to push hard to put out good work for those folks who have supported that career when you only had 2 pages read in KDP to an Amazon bestseller or whatever the situation may be. So yeah.
That KDP, I get you on that.
I can literally have I actually am doing a whole 2-hour session with my coaching crew around that.
Yeah. Necessary. That's necessary.
It's necessary. Yes.
Very necessary. All right, my ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the podcast. We want to thank Robbi Renee for coming into the virtual house with us. It has been really nice. It's been a delight. I appreciate you taking the time, and it's really nice to see your face and talk to you. So that's really nice. A lot of insightful words and very encouraging. So I appreciate.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. So that is it. I hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you all for your support and joining us on your Saturday. And that's it, y'all. That is
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.